Bonjour, French 2 students. Here is your teaching video for lesson 14, C and D, pages 211 to 213. S'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 211. Today we're going to start with a little review of what we've learned so far in this lesson. So one of the things that you learned in this lesson was the new irregular verb aller. So remember, because this is irregular, that means it's a verb you have to memorize. Aller means to go, and hopefully at this point you've been practicing this verb enough that you know the verb conjugations. So it's je vais, tu vas, il or elle va, nous allons, vous allez, and il and elle pluriel vont. Remember that the verb aller, you learned it way back at the start of French 1 because it was a verb that you used for how you feel. Remember those questions, ça va? And comment vas-tu? Those would be used with people your own age or people who are younger than you. Again, the formal question that you would use with adults that you don't know well is comment allez-vous? So, s'il vous plaît, répétez aller, je vais, tu vas, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. In this lesson, you also learned the a contractions with the definite article. Remember, a is a useful little word in French because it sort of has three meanings. It can mean at, in, or to. And again, you often use a contractions with the verb aller because you often say you're going to or you're going in, okay, places. So that's why this contraction is presented in this lesson with the verb aller. So remember, our definite articles mean the. And so we can have a and a le. That's the masculine singular definite article. We can have an a with a la. That's the feminine singular definite article. Because both of those become L' before a vowel or a silent H, we can have an a with an L'. And then finally, we can have an a with the plural definite article, masculine and feminine, it doesn't matter which one, which is les. So remember, the difference between contractions in French and English is in English the use of a contraction is your choice. So you can say cannot or can't or do not or don't. It's your choice. However, in French, the contractions are not a choice. Every single time in a sentence that you have an a and a le together, you have to change it to o. Remember, a and la stay a la. A and L' stay a L'. A and lay become o. Sounds the same, but it's with an X to indicate it's plural. So, s'il vous plaît, répétez o, à la, a L', a L', o. In this lesson, you also had some new vocabulary introduced on page 210. That was vocabulary relating to town and specifically talking about some different spots and events that you might attend to or go to. So again, that's why they're introduced with aller, is this is a vocabulary you might want to talk about going to or being in or being at. So, s'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 210. S'il vous plaît, répétez un endroit, un endroit, un événement, un événement, un concert, un concert, un film, un film, un match, un match, un pique-nique, un pique-nique, un rendez-vous, un rendez-vous, un boom, une boom, une fête, une fête, une soirée, une soirée. There were also some new regular ER verbs. Again, these are conjugated using your regular ER verb pattern. Remember that pattern is you start with your infinitive, you take off your ER, which gives you the stem, and then to that stem you add depending upon the subject of the sentence. When your subject is je, you're going to add an E to your stem. When your subject is tu, you're going to add an ES to your stem. When your subject is il or el singular, you're going to add an E to your stem. When your subject is nous, you're going to add an ONS to your stem. When your subject is vous, you're going to add an EZ to your stem. And when your subject is il or el pluriel, you're going to add an ENT to your stem. S'il vous plaît, répétez arriver, arriver, rentrer, rentrer, rester, rester. Also on page 210 are some expressions that you can use with faire une promenade to specify how you're going for a walk, a ride, or a drive. S'il vous plaît, répétez à pied, à pied, à vélo, en voiture, en voiture, en bus, en bus, en train, en train, en métro, en métro, en taxi, faire une promenade, faire une promenade. So, having kind of reviewed that, the next thing in this lesson is a useful little preposition, la preposition chez. Note the use of chez in the following sentences. Paul est chez Céline. Je dîne chez un copain. Natalie va chez Juliette. Tu vas chez ta cousine. So the French equivalent of to or at someone's house or home is the construction chez plus the name of the person. So this is one time where French is definitely a little bit shorter than English. So chez Béatrice would mean at Beatrice's house. Chez ma cousine would mean at my cousin's house. So this is a pretty useful little preposition. Now, because of what it means, it's also pretty common in the United States for a French restaurant to be named chez and then like a person's name, like it might be chez Jacques, which would mean technically at Jack's house, right? So that's a pretty common name for restaurants, French restaurants here in the United States. It also says at that arrow Note the interrogative expression chez qui vas-tu, right? As a high school student, this might be a question that you hear quite regularly from your parents if you were in France, because that's asking, like, whose house are you going to, right? So if you were leaving the house, your parents might ask you that. So what I'd like to do is have you repeat after me. We're going to do these sentences here. So, s'il vous plaît, répétez. Paul est chez Céline. Je dîne chez un copain. Nathalie va chez Juliette. Tu vas chez ta cousine. Chez qui vas-tu? So, s'il vous plaît, répétez. Chez. Chez. So again, a useful little preposition in French. So let's take a look at exercise 8 en vacances. When we are on vacation, we often like to visit friends and relatives. Say where the following people are going. So notice, because we're talking about going, we're going to use a form of the verb aller in each of these sentences. So look at our example. They give us the subject of our sentence and then where we're going. Whose house? Okay. So our sentence becomes Claire va chez Mark. So our format's always going to be our first prompt, the form of aller that matches the subject. Okay, so it has to match the subject. Then always the word chez, and then the second part of our prompt. So knowing that, go ahead and try number 1 with Elon and Jerome. Elon va chez Jerome. De Jean-Paul and Lucie. Jean-Paul va chez Lucie. Numéro 3, tu et un copain. Tu vas chez un copain. Numéro 4, Corinne et une cousine. Corinne va chez une cousine. Numéro 5, vous, des copines à Québec. Vous allez chez des copines à Québec. 6, nous, un cousin à Paris. Nous allons chez un cousin à Paris. Let's take a look at exercise 9, which we will also do out loud. Weekend. On weekends, we often like to visit friends and do things together. Say how the following people are spending Sunday afternoon. So again, we see our prompt. We have Cécile, jouer au ping-pong, Robert. So if we kind of look at our answer, notice that in our first backslash here, we are needing to conjugate our verb. Remember, that means we need to make our verb agree with our subject. Okay? And then in our second backslash, we're going to add the word chez. So our answer becomes Cécile joue au ping-pong chez Robert. Now remember, infinitives of the verb, okay, like are given here, they do not sound the same when you conjugate them. So go ahead and try number 1. Julie, Allaire, and Béatrice. Julie va chez Béatrice. De Claire dîner des cousins. Claire dîne chez des cousins. Toi, Antoine, jouer au croquet, and Sylvie. Antoine joue au croquet avec Sylvie. 4. Marc écoutait des CD un copain. Marc écoute des CD chez un copain. 5. Mathieu regardait la télé une copine. Mathieu regarde la télé chez une copine. 6. Elodie jouait aux jeux vidéo Thomas. Elodie joue aux jeux vidéo chez Thomas. 7. Nous mangeons une pizza, Lia. Nous mangeons une pizza chez Lia. 8. Vous regardez un DVD, Eric. Vous regardez un DVD chez Eric. 9. Tu joues au basket, Alice. Tu joues au basket chez Alice. All right, the next part of your lesson is about la construction à l'air plus l'infinitive. The following sentences describe what people are going to do. Note how the verb aller is used to describe these future events. So this is new. Remember, up until this point, you've only been able to talk about things that you were currently doing in the present tense. So this is the first time that we're seeing a way to talk about things that we're going to do in the future. So a way to talk about what we're going to do tomorrow or next week or this summer. So we have Nathalie va nager. Paul et Marc vont jouer au tennis. Nous allons rester à la maison. Je vais aller en ville. To express the near future, the French use the construction, the present of aller plus the infinitive. So again, kind of near future. At this point, we're going to use it for all future events. But if you continue studying French in high school and possibly in college as well, you'll learn a different future tense. But for right now, this is how we're going to talk about things that we do in the future. So again, we're using that present tense forms of aller that you've learned in this lesson. And then this is our second verb. And remember, always in French, when we have a second verb in a sentence, it's in its infinitive form. Remember, that's the infinitive form for aller. In negative sentences, the construction is subject, ne, present of aller, pas, infinitive. So we have this example here, Sylvie ne va pas écouter le concert avec nous. So that would translate as saying Sylvie is not going to listen to the concert with us. And then we have another arrow for note the interrogative form. So these are a question form. Qu'est-ce que tu vas faire? And quand est-ce que vous allez rentrer? Right? Again, it's a French teenager, right? French teenagers probably hear these questions pretty commonly from their parents, right? Qu'est-ce que tu vas faire? What are you going to do? And quand est-ce que vous allez rentrer? When are you going to come back home or come back? So again, what I'd like to do is go ahead and say these sentences and have you repeat them after me. S'il vous plaît, répétez. Nathalie va nager. Paul et Marc vont jouer au tennis. Nous allons rester à la maison. Je vais aller en ville. Sylvie ne va pas écouter le concert avec nous. Qu'est-ce que tu vas faire? Quand est-ce que vous allez rentrer? So again, the format of aller for this near future, in the affirmative, it is our subject, our present tense, of aller, conjugated, and then and then a second verb in the infinitive form. And then ... for whatever else is in that sentence. If our sentence is negative, it's subject, ne, aller conjugated, pas, our second verb infinitive, dot for whatever else is in that sentence. So, if I want to say, you are going to have dinner at a restaurant. You, let's say it's the plural you, so vous, are going, so that's the present tense form of aller conjugated for vous, which is aller. And then to have dinner at a restaurant is dîner au restaurant. If I want to say that they are not going to listen to the radio, ils ne vont pas écouter la radio. Okay, so again, this is aller used for the near future. It's the first time you've been able to talk about something that you're not currently doing, because present tense means you're currently doing whatever it is. So let's take a look at that language comparison there. It says to talk about future plans and intentions, French and English frequently use similar verbs, aller, to be going to. So they're saying this is pretty similar to how you say these things in English. So exercise 10, tourisme. Say where the following people are going this summer and what they are going to visit. So again, as we look at our prompt here, we have Monique à Paris le Louvre. So the first part's going to be used for the first sentence, and the second part's going to be used in the second sentence. In the first sentence, all I wanted to do is say that the person, whatever they've given me as the subject, is going to whatever the place is. Okay, so in this first sentence, I'm going to add, right, the conjugated form of aller that matches the subject. In our second sentence, I'm going to use the same subject, okay? So this is the same subject. We just, in this example, right, we probably wouldn't say Monique's name again, but it's the same subject. And then we're saying what they're going to do. So this is going to be that near future. So that's always going to be Again, conjugated aller. And then that second verb. And in this case, what's nice is that second verb is going to stay the same, right? So it's always going to be visite, and then whatever that second prompt is. So for example, number 1, where we're given the prompt Alice à New York and la Statue de la Liberté, is going to become Alice va à New York. Elle va visiter la Statue de la Liberté. Now in this case, it was va again because it was one person. Remember that that verb form is going to change for number 2. So go ahead and try numéro 2, nous, en Egypte, and les pyramides. Do remember, if you need more time than what I give you, you can pause your video. Nous allons en Égypte. Nous allons visiter les pyramides. Toi, vous, à Rome, le Colisée. Vous allez à Rome, vous allez visiter le Colisée. 4. Tu, à la Nouvelle-Orléans, le vieux carré. Tu vas à la Nouvelle-Orléans, tu vas visiter le vieux carré. 5. Je, à San Francisco, Chinatown. Je vais à San Francisco. Je vais visiter Chinatown. 6. Les élèves à San Antonio, l'Alamo. Les élèves vont à San Antonio. Ils vont visiter l'Alamo. 7. Madame la maire à Beijing, la cité interdite. Madame la maire va à Beijing. Elle va visiter la cité interdite. 8. Les touristes à Kyoto, les temples. Les touristes vont à Kyoto. Ils vont visiter les temples. The last thing in this lesson is a pronunciation, les semi-voyelles. In French, the semi-vowels are pronounced very quickly, almost like consonants. S'il vous plaît, répétez oui, chouette, Louise, moi, toi, pourquoi, voiture, loin, chouette, la voiture, de Louise, n'est pas loin. Bien, chienne, radio, piano, Pierre, Daniel, violon, pied, étudiant. Pierre écoute la radio avec Daniel. So your homework. Again, remember with your homework, remember you do have 2 choices. You can type it up in Google Docs, which is what I would really encourage you to be doing, with your keyboard on your Chromebook set to international, so you're practicing those accent marks, okay, and how to type them. Or you may handwrite it. If you're going to handwrite it, you'll have to take a picture of it, because remember, the only way you're turning in assignments is through Google Classroom. So your homework is on page 211, exercise 8, and on page 212, exercise 10. In exercise number 8, it says, en vacances. When we are on vacation, we often like to visit friends and relatives. Say where the following people are going. Remember, we did this one out loud. So again, in the backslash, you're adding your conjugated form of aller, and then always the preposition chez, and then whatever your second prompt is. So you're going to write out the 6 of those for exercise 8. For exercise 10, we also did this one out loud. You're going to have to write both sentences for each of these. So again, remember in the first sentence, you were just adding the conjugated form of aller. In the second sentence, you're using the same subject, the same conjugated form of avoir, always the verb visiter, and then the second prompt. So that's what you should be typing up or writing on your paper for your homework assignment. Au revoir, à demain.